case anybody was wondering, Candace Owens is still a moron. And so is this guy she has on her show. This is Tom Woods. So Tom Woods has a PhD in history that he got from Columbia or Harvard or something like that. He wrote this book called The Politically Incorrect Guide to American History or something like that. You can read the book on the internet for free. Just Google the title of the book, PDF, and you can check it out. I mean, it's really, I didn't read the entire thing. I read through some sections. This section, the PC myth, the Puritans were racist. No, they actually weren't. I read some of the stuff he wrote about the cause of the Civil War, how it was about slavery, but it wasn't really about slavery. I'm not going to go in. This video is not about this book. This is for a historian to read and react to. But what I will say is it's a very unserious book, a very unserious looking book. I expect a book written by a guy with a PhD in history about American history to be kind of, dense, boring, and long. And this just reads like pop history. The arguments from the small amount of it that I read also basically amount to nuh-uh arguments. You may or may not remember, but when I made one of my videos reacting to insipid sophistry, Michael Jones, a guy said Christianity engaged in or has a history of cultural erasure or something like that. And then insipid sophistry says Christians weren't going around rampantly burning books. In fact, in the time of Constantine, no book burnings happened. Yeah, a guy who had a reign of a couple of decades, embedded within 2,000 years of Christian history, and we're going to use that example to say that it never happened. That's the kind of thing I saw reading this. Oh, the Puritans, no, they didn't do bad. Like, the Native Americans signed a treaty with them, actually. So, it doesn't even bring up what's really in contention apart from the claim. It doesn't go over specifics. It doesn't specifically say how, the Pequot War or whatever that was called wasn't really what you think it is because of these reasons. It just says like, nuh-uh. It gets so much worse though. Apparently Ron Paul, and you can't see it because the it's being cut out on the top here, but Ron Paul has a homeschool curriculum for parents that want to homeschool their children. That sounds like an absolutely horrible idea. It covers absolutely everything K through 12, and this guy did a lot of the curriculum, at least for history. Now, hilariously enough, they have biology on here, and you won't at all be surprised to find out, I don't know if you'll be able to read it, but it says down here, note, this course does not teach evolution. Really? I'm shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked. However, the course does cover the different, phylums of animal life. So I'm really curious as to if they just simply interject doubt about evolution into there, or if they sort of, if they claim mollusk fossils go back hundreds of millions of years, then that would be interesting, and I mean that would be good in a way. Now, I would love to know, but the course costs $50. If this video does extremely well, gets 50,000 views, then I'll buy the course. So please like the video, share it so that this can get popular enough for me to do that. There's also a course on American history, also $50. I would really love to know what their ideas behind the cause of the Civil War was.
I fell down this rabbit hole, so to speak, over the last couple of years, and it's so jarring and it's so shocking, and it takes such a tremendous amount of humility to admit that you know nothing.
No, Candace, you've never done that, because in those first two videos we watched, you just sit there and be like, oh, the scientists say evolution happened? Nuh-uh. So, no, Candace, you have never, ever, ever, ever done this. You're the, I can't remember how we called it, the ironic sheep or whatever. You just simply say, if mainstream science is saying that something is a fact, then Candace Owens will simply say that it's not true, or Candace Owens will be agnostic on it. Is the earth flat? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Did we go to the moon? Well, I don't know. You're saying we did? Name every single person that ever walked on the moon. So, yeah.
And I have such a thirst for knowledge now, and I do recognize, and there were always the signs there, that what we've actually implemented here in America is not unlike, it's actually an exact replica of like Soviet education. It's like Stalin youth, essentially. And I learned...
What on earth? Okay. No, the Soviet science, that was just state-sponsored propaganda. A lot of it was. They actually were making some pretty good advancements in science, and Americans at the time were really worried about that. I mean, they beat us at every step along the way in the space race. They beat us at absolutely everything except actually landing people on the moon. If you want to, I read Richard Feynman's autobiography, Surely You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman. I think that's what it's called. And he talks about this because he was asked to review curriculum that people were making because they were trying to like revamp science and physics and math and stuff to keep up with the Soviets. And he thought it was all kind of garbage. But no, what we have today is not like that. And in Soviet Russia, I've talked about this a lot before, but they just flat out, actually, Candace would have loved it. They flat out rejected evolutionary biology. They kicked people out of the country and executed people that believed, like PhDs and whatever, that believed in evolutionary biology because it didn't fit with their quasi-religious, political philosophy or whatever we want to call it. So now, Candace, you would have loved the Soviet Union.
Learned about that because I was reading a Thomas Sowell book, Inside the American Education System.
Oh, I read that one.
Great book. Yeah. And he actually talks about how they're able to, even when there's that one child that stands up, and he was speaking about sex education in particular, and how they start by trying to isolate the child and making them think that they're...
Notice how this has nothing to do with what Soviet education was like or trying to draw the comparison.
Parents are backwards and their parents don't know anything, and like you're part of this new generation. Most
parents are deeply ignorant about most things because most people are deeply ignorant about most things. The greatest math teacher would be a terrible, terrible English teacher. That's just the way it is. So we need a lot of experts in schools because individuals can't do this.
And this thing, and everybody's having sex. And he says in that book, and the reality was before the 70s, before it was, I believe, Jimmy Carter who signed off on the Department of Education. Yeah. Before the implementation of the Department of Education, the majority of high schoolers were graduating with their virginity intact. And
before the Department of Education, the majority of teenagers graduated with their virginity intact. So, have we hit the 51% threshold today? Go ahead, guess. No, really, guess. Oh no, we've seen a precipitous drop in the rate of teen pregnancy? What? But I watch Candace Owens videos. I thought we were at least at a majority. This only goes back to the 90s, and if we go back farther, oh look, that period, this is funny because that highlighted area, that's the Make America Great Again golden age that they think about. And it's mostly like economic prosperity and the things like that, maybe like smaller government, although, I wouldn't call McCarthyism smaller government, and that was rampant. But yeah, that was when it was at its worst. And Jimmy Carter becomes president in after Gerald Ford. The rates then were vastly higher than they are today. And the trend has been a precipitous drop ever since then. So, Candace, you're right. You don't know anything, but you have never once acted like you don't know everything.
But then they started this sort of Planned Parenthood funded effort in the classroom to convince children otherwise, and they isolate that child. And if there's that one kid that stands up and says no, my mom says I should keep my virginity, they allow the entire class to participate. And he cites
that does not happen. Schools don't create roundtables where they say, any of you kids think you should not get pregnant in high school? I don't think I should. Okay, everybody, let's tell Susie why she's wrong. That has never, ever happened. Oh, you know what? Here's a graph of teen pregnancies. Wow. You mean the Bible Belt is where it's the worst? These are also the states that where age of consent, for example, is only 16, or they're trying to get it down to 16. If we were more like the version that Candace Owens wants us to be, we would go in exactly the opposite direction that Candace wants us to.
Examples to participate in making this child feel humiliated. So this goes back to exactly what we're talking about with COVID, where people don't want to feel isolated, they don't want to feel humiliated, and they also don't want to admit that it's plausible that they're wrong. So they just do the thing. They just agree with the thing. And I mean, that to me is just, it's so sad that people don't have the courage to stand by what is so, to me, obviously and morally wrong.
Pretty ironic that the person saying, well, no, the students just go along with everything, are the people that want to pull kids out of public schools and either homeschool them or take them into private schools where you're not allowed to. It's not just that you're not allowed to like hear the opposite idea. It's like literally forbidden. Exactly what she accuses schools of. Like, you get a plurality of ideas in schools, at least, but not with the kind of schooling that she advocates for. Like, literally 100, just like the teen pregnancy thing, 100% guilty of what she's accusing other people of, but she probably doesn't realize it or care because, well, at least the narrative is what I want it to be in these other places. Like, oh, in public schools, they just reject God, so homeschool your children. Okay, but if they're homeschooled, then they won't hear the opposite. Well, I don't want the opposite to be heard. Okay, so you're full of shit.
Yeah. Well, the stuff about the schools, that is like institutionalized bullying. And yet you walk into a school today and they'll have a poster on the wall that says, we're against bullying. And their anti-bullying policy consists of that poster. That's about it. But then in terms of what you're talking about here, I should say something about I absolutely agree with you about science becoming a religion, and it's not my religion.
Oh, boy.
And I'm standing up against it. That doesn't mean I don't believe in the scientific method. It doesn't mean I don't accept scientific conclusions, but it does mean we have a perverse.
I bet he does, though. I bet he's just down the line. Like, he's a well-spoken idiot. Instead of the poorly spoken idiots that I normally debate with, probably a well-spoken idiot who just believes all the science except for the sciences that are inconvenient for his religion.
Deformation of actual science. And we're like last year we had more retracted papers in medicine than at any time ever. And you would think as time goes on, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I looked into this. So yes, there was a record set, more than 10,000 research papers, but in the field of medicine, but 8,000 of them came from this one specific publisher, which used to be based in Cairo, and then it was bought up by an American publisher, Wiley and Company, or Wiley and Sons, whatever it's called now. Now, I don't know where it's headquartered and how it's operated. It was only bought like 3 years ago, so I can't imagine a lot has changed. But when 80% of the bad papers are coming from one single source, that is not evidence of a systemic problem. And furthermore, these 10,000 papers, the majority of those papers, they were produced in countries like Pakistan and Russia and China. It's not a United States problem. But also, if we kind of do the math, how many medical papers are published every year? I didn't get like a total number, but PubMed alone was 1.5 million. So what is that as a percent? We divide 10,000 by 1.5 million, and we get. Well, that just proves that it is a bunch of Frankists and Satanists and Freemasons, huh? Yeah, so anyways, 2/3 of 1%. So the system is 99.3 repeating % good, But no, but it's become a religion. Let's just throw the whole thing out. What do you do with people that think like this? By which I mean people that don't think. I don't know what you do.
I think we would get better and better, and we'd have more knowledge, and there'd be fewer retracted papers. Like, something's going wrong. But also, scientism, which is what we're opposed to, more or less seems to say that the only stuff I'm going to believe is information that comes through a test tube. Then I'll believe it. But so much of what these people...
Yeah, so science deals with the natural world. So if something is regarded as, or something is stated to be an empirically verifiable fact, then that's the kind of evidence you want. If it's a claim that can never be empirically demonstrated, then it's non-scientific, and it's also, like, it's not scientifically useful.
Believe can't possibly come out of a test tube. Like, these people say, I believe in human equality. Well, there is nothing that's going to come directly from observation or a test tube that's going to support that.
Yes, there is. We learned that the difference, like the biggest genetic difference between melanated people with highly melanated skin and people that look like me, like Wonder Bread, is literally like a single base pair substitution. So actually, yeah, studying humans has confirmed that we are just a single human race. So I would say it can actually support this philosophical presupposition, but I'm not really sure what the point he's trying to make here is. Scientists believe in they have like philosophical beliefs or whatever. I guess I know what he's saying. Even the scientist doesn't believe everything is about science, but nobody's going around. Secularists like myself aren't going around saying, "Where's the scientific proof for the Bill of Rights" or something like that. I mean, right wingers are the people that are running around saying that the Civil Rights Act should have never been signed and shit like that. So I don't get what target he's trying to hit with this.
Because people are tall or short or smart or dumb or talented or untalented. All we have are differences. But we believe in equality. Why? Because that's a philosophical presupposition. That's a philosophical idea that's very defensible, that people should be treated equally before the law.
It's scientifically defensible if you want to say that people are, like, you can't judge the value, the worth of a person, but you can prove that people are materialistically equal. And so there's no logical argument then. Like, I can understand not extending rights to other species, but all humans are humans. So
more at length about scientism, because I recently read C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man, and I think it's a really important point to hit upon in case people are not familiar what you are differentiating here between scientism and science.
Well, so when we say science, especially since, let's say, the so-called scientific revolution, but we also had science. I mean, Roger Bacon, there were people in the high Middle Ages who were practicing science. And by the way, that's a whole...
Not really. Francis Bacon and Roger Bacon literally never carried out any scientific experiments that I could ever find. I did some research on this not that long ago. They never carried out any experiments. They laid out the fundamental ideas behind the scientific method and like a scientific skeptical worldview, but they weren't like real scientists by any means.
Whole other story is the normal portrayal of the progress of Western history is that we had Greece and Rome, then nothing.
No, the lie of the dark ages.
Right.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
and then the
I mean, not much happened.
railroads or something. Like what? Yeah. So that's another matter. I wrote a book on that. But it's one thing when we recognize that science can answer some questions. We gather data, we form hypotheses, we test the hypotheses, and we keep an open mind. Like, we don't say, you're going to get funded and your paper published if it seems to advance the current consensus. That is a deformation of science, and that is exactly what we've had.
Okay, so is this the kind of person that is in favor of like socializing science? Yeah, I really doubt it. This is the kind of person that will always go up to bat for like pharmaceutical companies, despite the fact that every single new drug molecule over the last 2 decades has been found using public research. This is a guy, I don't know, it sounds like he's making an argument for public research, to fund public research, but I bet he would be against it. This is probably also a guy who thinks that oil companies should be the ones that investigate themselves for their environmental impacts, for how much pollution they create and shit like that. So I don't want to hear this kind of rhetoric from people like this. I'll just repeat what I said. The conflict of interest thing surrounding like chemical companies and fossil fuel companies and whatever, like the way this has been corrupted on who and how and what agencies or whatever investigate things like that in the interest of public health. Pollution is public health. It doesn't just have to be medicine. People like this guy are the ones that are doing everything they can to make sure the EPA doesn't exist, to make sure that these mega companies don't have to spend a dime on research or if they do spend a dime, it all stays internal. So don't want to hear
Marty
it.
McCary has a brand new book out called Blind Spots, in which he just runs through all these areas where the consensus was so wrong, but good luck trying to fight against it. Now, what is that? That is a religion in the worst possible sense of the word.
No, because science has changed. And I mean, you can argue that Christianity has changed. I mean, it's produced some pretty great schisms, right? But the degree to which one has changed versus the other, there's absolutely no argument there whatsoever.
I mean, the Catholic religion has St. Thomas
Raped children.
Aquinas in it.
Oh, okay.
And he asks about 2,000 questions in his Summa Theologiae. The medieval universities were based around asking questions and debating them. Now, you couldn't graduate unless you had held a disputation on some disputed topic. Whereas today, when we like to congratulate ourselves at how much more open-minded we are than they used to be, it's just the opposite. They come after you. I mean,
this guy has a PhD, so he has to know that he's lying. And quick side note, it is morally incorrect for Candace Owens to be wearing a suit 3 sizes too big for her with a hoodie underneath of it. I should have pointed that out earlier. But anyways, you can't get a PhD unless you contribute something new to the academic world, something that wasn't previously known. Now, you can make this very stupid, pedantic argument that, yeah, but you're not overturning anything. You're just supporting more of what's already known. If it was false, then if the underlying core ideas were false, then you couldn't get a PhD because you couldn't be learning, or we couldn't continuously manufacture these PhDs, because what we would learn in the process of trying to add to that is that nothing would ever work. Okay? So I just what is this guy talking about?
One quick little example. You notice that in America, we have so many people with peanut allergies. And it seems to be like just an American thing. Like, why don't they have peanut allergies?
I know exactly what he's going to say. I actually agree with this. Yeah, we keep kids away from peanuts, and that's actually causing more peanut allergies.
Is that this is another thing that scientism has fed into, is that we attribute to these people superhuman characteristics. They have the same moral foibles that you and I have, and they're subject to the same kinds of influences that you and I might be.
Yeah, but they operate with a framework that is the best known framework for figuring out true facts about the natural world. It is imperfect, but even your example revealed that it is, at worst, 99.3% effective. You don't have a better method.
So, unfortunately, I know...
In fact, based on the books that you write, your entire... The entire point of what you do is to try to defend a status quo that that reinforces what your own sort of like philosophical ideas about things are. Now that's in the realm of like American history and Western culture's place, and slavery wasn't all that bad or whatever the hell it is. So.
That the media discourages you from, quote, doing your own research. But in this day and age, finding somebody who really is knowledgeable about medicine is a rare thing and very important. And
no, it's not. They're called doctors. Liars, idiots, and hypocrites. All of them. I'll see you tomorrow.